Humanitarians Live with Viki. Hello, Viki.
Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. So, we're talking today about how we might be using intuition negatively to our disadvantage and how to recognize that and what to do about them, basically, because of the month of intuition that we're talking the whole of October. So, let's start, Viki, with some examples of when we might be using intuition negatively where maybe we shouldn't be using it or you should be using it with some care. What would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And when we are talking about, I think there is, first of all, I would like to say that sometimes there is a confusion between instinct and intuition, or what is actually speaking to me, where is this voice coming? So I think
Mm,
it's probably important to identify that. And when we are talking about intuition, I would also like to say that, when we need some precise data or when we need some analysis, even in the context of transitioning, all these situations are important too, based on data. And one of the most, and here I'll go immediately into an example, and then we can develop, because this is one of the things that is really coming to my mind as very clearly, is, for example, evidence, right? If we need some
mm,
evidence, whether we are planning for certain financial, we have a financial plan, or some situations where we need evidence. So clearly, these are maybe situations where you may be hearing voices, but it's not, or messages that you think may be intuition, and it's telling you to do things that maybe would not be so good for you. So I think all the situations that require analysis, like, again, financial analysis, or you are moving to another country and you say, okay, this looks good to me, this house looks good to me, I'm going to bet on it. But actually, if you are moving into a new country, or even new part of the town, then you will make your research, you will do your
mm.
research to understand what are the facilities, what is the
Yeah.
safety, what is the infrastructure, and all that. So I would say, let's not put everything on intuition. Let's not ask intuition to answer every single banal, I will call them banal, or like, questions. That's not
Mm,
what's the purpose of the intuition. That's my
yeah.
understanding of it.
Yeah. I hear you. And I think that's what we were saying before that ideally using both is always like the intuitive part of ours and the rational part of calculating or analyzing and yeah, getting our sound decision. Basically, it's what we're saying, right? And the other examples that I was thinking of how we might be using intuition negatively that is not useful is several of the occasions that I can think of where we have work situations where we feel like someone is judging us, we feel like someone's not liking us, or someone is tense with us, and we sense it. And I think we all humans have this ability
Yeah.
that we can like see the mood or sense the mood, whatever the way that we phrase it, right? And then oftentimes from my own experience as well, that the way that I have then handled that situation is I used to be the person who then goes on to be thinking a lot about that person, why they're thinking this, why they're judging me, or why they're not liking me. And then this need to be liked, or I don't know what else was there. And therefore, I used to be like behaving in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise behaved. And in order to get them like me, or in order to get them understand my situation or whatever it is, right? And I see that in that type of situations, intuition can be making us feel like we are just modifying our behavior if we intuitively thought or sensed it was the other way around, let's say that someone liked us or someone is supporting us, then maybe we would have behaved differently. And therefore, I can see that intuition in that sense can be not really helping us instead of getting really clear as to, okay, my intuition is maybe saying that they don't like me or they don't approve of what I'm saying. But does that mean that I should be following my side of, oh my God, now I need to do something to change their mind, or I need to do something to get them like me or whatever, right? Because probably many of us don't want to do that because there are certain people who will not like us, and that's just statistics, let's
Yeah.
say, and therefore nothing can be done about it. And therefore, I just want people to see how we are using that intuition to say, okay, we have a choice to make here. We can decide to get in our head as to how we can get them like us, or we can just continue working on what we said we would work on, irrespective of how they're approving, disapproving, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And if necessary, we can also talk to that person directly. That's where the rational mind
Mhm.
comes in to say, okay, talking to that person and seeing what's happening. Maybe there are things we can resolve, maybe there are things we cannot, and that's also
Mhm.
fine. And then not losing the focus of what we're working on, basically, and showing up the way we want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and thank you for mentioning it because I'm sure this is a very frequent situation, and I can actually recall something very similar where I was on the other hand, I was on the other side
Mm,
of the equation where,
yeah.
as you are saying, when we have interactions, we perceive the world and we perceive the person in a certain way, which is just influenced by so many different factors like upbringing, childhood, culture, the day, the hormonal level, so many different things. And so I remember exactly the same situation where the person I was interacting, and then the person had the courage to speak up and say something that I perceive you of as something very, I don't know how it was, something in a sense that you are very strict or judgmental, and we
Mm,
were of course very happy she mentioned it. It was several
yeah.
one of us, and we were very happy that she mentioned it. So there was her perception, how she was perceiving maybe us not talking all the time or not commenting on every single thing because
Yeah.
you don't we don't always add, we just said like all good. And so that's why I
Yeah.
think it's very important to clarify these things, because you can say, I don't know if in this case it's intuition or instinct telling you, oh, this person doesn't like me, they don't think I'm doing a good job, but there might be so many different reasons, and that it's always a very subjective perception.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's I think I would say the feeling, don't ignore the feeling, in a sense, address it. Where is it coming from? And if it's addressed with the person, I think it's probably, if it's possible, then it's always good to clarify these situations, because I believe in 90% of the cases this will be clarified in a way that
Yeah.
is not in a way that is would be good for both sides and both and the
Yeah.
result overall.
Yeah. So I also was just thinking that the best way in that situation for me would be to observe how I'm behaving now that I intuitively sense that someone is not liking me. Let's say, how am I behaving, and then do I want to behave that way? Right? I think this is really the what it comes down to, and then if I feel like I can't really behave the way I want to because I'm afraid, whatever, whatever, then also it's good to look at all of those fears around why
Yeah.
I'm just now in this limiting and self censoring mode. And instead of really being the way I usually am if I hadn't this
Yeah.
type of sense or whatever it is. So that's why I just want people to be aware of it. And the other thing that I think we are intuitively good at sensing when people want things from us
Mm-hmm.
or when we are acting in the way that we're wanting something from other people, right? And this example comes up a lot when I coach people around networking is that,
Yeah.
around networking, we feel
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't want to be a transactional, like we say, right? Or I don't want to be like using people. I don't want to just come and say, oh, let's say, Viki, do you have a job for me? I just need a job, and then I haven't spoken to you in years, and then I just come over and say this, and then you being there on the receiving end may feel like, okay, this person just wants something, and intuitively we have this negative then
Mm-hmm.
reaction most of the
Yeah.
times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have all been there or from either side. I have been on both sides,
Yeah.
and in that moment, I think oftentimes we use the intuition in the way that says like, oh, I just have this like negative reaction to someone asking me help, and therefore I just do this on the surface level, or I just say,
Mhm.
oh, just go and check this.
Mhm.
And the reason why I think it's negative is because if it wasn't for that feeling, I think we generally want to be useful. I
Yeah.
believe, right? As humans, we want to be useful. We want to help others, like for no any return, basically. We want to,
Yes.
and that's why as humanitarians we do this work, is because we want
Yes.
to do good in the world.
Mhm.
And therefore, don't let your this negative sense coming up stopping you from helping the person in the best possible way
Mhm.
you could without expecting any return.
Yeah.
Even if this person came to you like after not talking for however many years, I understand that we value relationship, but at the same time, like my take is that isn't it better that we help someone to advance their journey in some way? Then we feel good about ourselves, right? We did something for another human. I would say that's much better feeling to have rather than, they wanted to use me and I like got them off my
Yeah.
shoulders and then now I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel better. I don't know. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
better to me. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're saying is that, if we sort of reject, as you say, if we go into, if we say no, then we go into a negative pattern and negative
Yeah.
mindset, and actually creating negativity, which is probably none of us want to create. So I have seen also these situations where, after a while, as you say, somebody wants to contact someone and ask for advice, and I think it's always comes down to the matter of communication. I mean, and transparency. If we are transparent and say,
Yeah.
look, I have not talked to you for a long time, and just be very transparent and honest and accept that maybe the person will answer, maybe not. I think
Yeah.
it's probably always the best to be really as most transparent and authentic as we can.
Yeah.
And as well as you're saying that, I remember, I don't know, I think it was the founder of Apple. I always forget his name.
Steve
uh,
Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Was it Steve
And
Jobs?
the other person, yeah, his name
Yeah,
and person I
Wozniak.
don't know.
I think it was
Yes,
Steve Jobs
Wozniak.
who actually, if I remember, if it's him, who always said, "Look, as when I was starting, in my garage, I would just call so many different people, and most of the, like 80% of the people or 90% of the people would say, yes, sure, I can help you. I can help you with this." And so it's just a matter of
Yeah.
going for it. So
Yeah.
yes, it could be, as you say, I don't know if it's intuition. I probably think it's more of instinct, or lack of having a habit, telling us, giving us this feeling, that, we shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing it. We are being transactional, but asking for it's more about knowing how to ask for help, and knowing also how to give help, or how to provide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was just thinking that in that moment when someone asks us for help, this intuition, I think, like comes up in the sense of, ooh, we're being used or we're being asked something from
Hmm.
someone who we haven't
Yeah.
heard in a while. And this, like, some kind of maybe negative thing that comes up. And I think that's even if it does come up, it doesn't mean that we just ignore or just give
Hmm.
the surface level answer. If we choose to, we can also decide, okay, whatever is happening in this person's world, they came up to us
Yeah.
to seek help. We understand it on a human level, what that is like, right? To search for a job, to ask for help. Asking for help is not easy sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to such favors or
Hmm.
such requests. So, therefore, just I invite people to get into, yes, if anything, think of your own times when you were searching for a job back in the day when you had starting your own career, whatever it is, right? And then how you would have been so grateful if someone else just decided to help you without any reproaches, without any expectations of relationship or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the same goes for, I think, for people who are asking for help is I, like Viki was saying, that I always love to just ask for help in the honest possible way to say, if there's anything you can like direct me towards
Mhm.
have conversation, whatever it is, I will be very grateful, right? And I think I just assume this because other people want to be useful and
Yeah,
therefore they always want to help if they can. If they don't, that's fine too, right? So there is no like, I don't know, holding them uh,
yeah.
against the wall or something. So that's the other one. The other thing that I think is like would be good to talk about, Viki, the tense situations.
The tense situations.
Yeah, like you feel tension with, I don't know, in relationship or with colleagues, right? There is this tense feeling
Hmm.
and you feel them from others. I think intuitively,
Hmm.
again, we know that this is like we can feel the other person is very tense.
Yeah,
Maybe we can even feel the other person is aggressive or passive aggressive, whichever the way we say it. In those situations, how you have handled it.
yeah. Yes, that's a very good question. You know, if your internal compass is telling you that there is a tension, it's almost as you are saying, okay, this is a bit dangerous. I'm not where
Mm,
I am with this person. And it's interesting because it may be justified, but it may not be justified. The person may
yeah,
be tense because of something completely different,
yeah,
like completely unrelated to you, but the
yeah,
person might also be tense because there has been maybe a fight before, or the person you have had some disagreements in the past, or there is
yeah,
something, or maybe you don't even know
yeah.
the reason. So I always ever since studying before, I will tell you before how I would react, I would ignore this and just go
Mm,
to the topic, which I don't believe it is good. Actually, you can't solve this because throughout coaching and systems coaching, I learned that if there is this underlying thing, you will never have a good communication. You have to address the subject matter. Um, to say, okay, I'm sensing tensions. Where is this
mm,
coming from? Would you want to talk about this? It could be
yeah,
that the person says no. And I remember in the past when sometimes, like, I'm thinking of one of my assignments like 15 years ago, when I was really, really upset with someone and somehow wasn't able to communicate, and they asked me, would you like to talk? At that moment, I said, no, I'm not ready. And I was ready maybe
mm,
2 days later, or maybe
yeah,
even a month later, maybe. So, in the same way, I do believe that these tensions need to be cleared. It doesn't mean you will solve your problem, but you can't have a discussion if there is this tension, something. You might have some progress. You might have some progress, of course, but if you want to have a deep, honest conversation, it's best to address this point that is really sort of a sore. What do you call it?
Sorai.
Sore eye. So thank you. That's
Yes,
how I would go about that.
yes. I was also thinking that one of the best ways is to mention that this is what I'm sensing again, right? This is may be true, may not be true. We don't know, but this is what I'm sensing. And also the other thing that I think is so useful is we can also sense when there is a willingness to solve it versus when there's not a willingness to
Yeah,
solve it, right? Sometimes we feel like even if we discussed it, let's say, and then afterwards we have this sense of it hasn't been resolved really, right?
yeah,
Everyone kept their own opinion, or maybe everyone just
yeah,
sat down for the sake of discussing it in quotes, but
hmm,
it wasn't really
yeah,
the thing that resolved it. So that's why one of the ways that I have approached it is to say, okay, I'm willing to talk about it and solve it. And if it's my thing, I'm willing to work on it. If it's not my thing, I'm willing to hear whatever it is that I'm willing to explore and find out. And going with that intention, I think, is so important. And oftentimes when we're at work and difficult situations and emergencies, we tend to maybe do things, say things without really realizing, right? So therefore, tensions may be created even without knowing that this is what's happening. And therefore, I think taking time to really like bring our humanness to the table and saying, yes, If
Yeah.
there's anything I may have done, I totally want to take responsibility. I just need to know what that is so I don't do that again,
Yeah.
right? And I think that type of conversation can ease the tense so much. And I was also thinking that intuition is good from that perspective to let us know that something is off,
Yeah.
and we then can address it. And it may turn out something totally different as well, right? But it's always important that we come back to it. And intuition in that sense can give us a hint, but also it may take us to the place of, oh my God, this is a tense situation, so I better avoid it, or I better not say
Mhm.
things that I would have said. This, I suggest not to do that, because then it will just get even tenser and to a point that you will have to address it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Any other things that we haven't mentioned in terms of negative ways we may use intuition?
I'm thinking, and this is relatively, that's, as I said, in the context of transitioning of humanitarians that would like to transition into humanitarian world or out of humanitarian world or within to
Mhm.
different means. It's really, whenever you feel you are going, there is something you need to do, but you either don't have time or you don't have a headspace, and you start to rely on intuition, even though that's maybe not the way. It's really the time to maybe pause and say, okay,
Mm.
can I do this differently? Because over relying on intuition is, again, also not very good in, again, in the moments when you need to do very exact calculation or very exact research, or when you need to do a trends and patterns analysis or something along those lines. Then you're not going to have only intuition.
Mm. And the other thing I was thinking of, that intuition is a great way to use it, especially to indicate certain hunches of what's going on, or why, and then why it's going on the way it's going on, then you start using and analyzing, right? So that's obvious. But also I was thinking that intuition can also have great advantages in from the future perspective of us hinting to what are the possibilities that exist, and then us then um, explaining or justifying why we could and how we could transition to that place.
Mhm.
And therefore intuition can also hunch us to places where we then start behaving in the way that we wouldn't have otherwise, right? So therefore we're trying to show you both perspectives of
Mhm.
how intuition can be so helpful, but also it can lead us to directions that we actually don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And then catching yourself and being aware of that,
Mhm.
intentional about it, is always helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. So if any last words, or we can wrap up and
Listen to yourself. I would say, get a habit
yes.
of really listening to your, taking, I would say, undisturbed moments, like moments without social media, or moments where you are by yourself. I think that's important to train intuition and to hear the intuition.
Yes, I love that. And also just see how everything within you is basically always telling you to go in the directions that serves you best.
Yes.
And if it's fear, it's telling you to be careful, right? So therefore I just feel like all of what we have within us are just great instruments or great tools that are telling us things. They keep always like alerting, they keep always
Yeah.
showing us, and therefore us just interpreting or tuning in with them,
Mhm.
and then knowing when to hear those messages, when to pivot, when to
Mhm.
shift. These are the jobs that we can do then, once we're so attuned with ourselves. So then have a beautiful week. Come over to coach with us or ask questions around any topics that we cover. We'd love to help you get to. more intuitive, but also more decisive in terms of your transitioning journey. And yeah, that's the whole purpose of these episodes, anyway. So thank you so much. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you,
See you
Asel. Thank you,
next week.
everyone. See you next